Hey everyone, Giancarlo Veronini here at GDC 2011. I'm joined by Michael DePlatter, design director at Snowblind Studios, and we're here to talk about Lord of the Rings: War in the North.
So, as you say, we've been able to get the film rights, and we've got the literary rights, and we can bring those together, and it's got a huge number of advantages. One, it lets us create an original story set in Middle-earth that parallels the story we've seen in Lord of the Rings. So we're not limited to just going to the places that were seen in the movies. We can expand on that and go to places that were mentioned in the books, but maybe not seen, so we can go and explore the Barrow Downs, for example. But again, it also lets us even go beyond that and actually create new heroes, create new characters, create an entire new story that fleshes out, you know, this enormous world of Middle-earth that Tolkien created. Snowblind obviously has a really good heritage in action RPG on console, and I think it's that incredibly fun loop of, you know, cool combat and killing monsters, getting loads of loot, upgrading your character, exploring the world, and then on top of that, the collaboration of co-op and doing that with your friends. Like, it's incredibly just a fun game system, and it's actually surprising there haven't been, you know, more of that on this generation of consoles. So I think a lot of people have been waiting to see that for a long time. But of course, now with the power of current generation consoles versus, for example, the PlayStation 2, can now take that incredibly fun gameplay experience and then amp it up in terms of the immersion and really getting you down and putting you in the midst of the action. And then that camera dropping down there has big gameplay benefits as well. We can make the range combat much stronger to go with the melee. And then on top of that, to be able to do that in Middle-earth, probably the best fantasy world ever created. So it is a successor to the Baldur's Gate games, but it is, you know, a true next generation evolution of them as well. So I know all the guys at Snowblind just, you know, incredibly excited about this game. The story is taking place in parallel with the events of Lord of the Rings. So there's this War of the Ring going on, which is this continent-spanning massive war. And what we've seen in the movies in Lord of the Rings is really the journey of the ring bearers and the southern front of that war. And what we're getting to explore in War in the North is the other major front of that war, so the northern front, where these massive armies are gathering. And as Gandalf said, if it wasn't for a few heroes preventing those armies marching south on Gondor, then all would have been lost anyway, even if Frodo had succeeded. So the story is definitely tracking in parallel to, is very faithful to the Lord of the Rings and intersects at different times. So, for example, we meet Aragorn in Bree while he's waiting for Frodo. We travel to Rivendell and meet Elrond and other members of the council there. We intersect with Gandalf at different times. So it's really touching on that story, but then going off on its own to discover these new places in Middle-earth as well. So yeah, the game is very much, it's co-op focused, but it's co-op focused in a way that's also very true to the fiction, to Middle-earth and to Tolkien, which is about the Fellowship. So that trinity of those three characters of the ranger, the elf and the dwarf, and how they have to work together. That's very fundamental. I think in Tolkien that if you go off on your own, you don't have the support of your friends, you're going to die. And that's something that's really at the essence of our gameplay as well. And so the skills of the three characters, the class abilities, are really designed to help each other. You can trade items to help each other. When you reveal and find loot in the world, it's to help each other. So it's definitely not a game about screwing each other over or you know, trying to grab the loot first or trying to steal kills. It's really about working together and surviving together, and that's integral in all parts of the game. You know, if one character dies, that's it, you failed that section, you're back to the last checkpoint. So it's really about having to work together and survive against these incredible odds and these kind of badass enemies. It's certainly an action RPG, so it's in that kind of heritage of Dark Alliance and those type of games. But the action RPG, there's some really strong elements to that as well. So combat's obviously a big pillar, but we also make the story is a very fundamental part to RPGs as well. You know, that you actually care about your characters, and we're taken through this very epic story. And then also the character progression, so skill progression, loot, upgrades, equipment. It's also extremely deep. And I think that ties to the combat, because you care about your loot and your upgrades because it's actually helping you with the core game system. It's the combat. So it's not just a set of new stats or new numbers. You really feel the difference as you progress and upgrade your characters. And that's incredibly empowering as well. So you might be actually really struggling against these orcs the first time you meet them. You power up, you come back to those guys again, and you can just, absolutely carve your way through them. So it's a big part of the fun of action RPGs is that they are so empowering and so cool with the character progression. There's always the three characters are always present, because it's really fundamental to the story and the story of the Fellowship and the gameplay. So they can all be controlled by human players, either split screen or online, or they can be controlled by bots. So you could have 2 players split screen and 1 bot. You could have 2 players online and a bot, 3 human players, 1 player and 2 bots. So really any combination of that. And even if you're playing with the bots, you still have a very good experience, and you've even got some basic controls over getting them to attack and defend and so on. So it's on all the high definition platforms, so it's Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, PC, and it's coming out this year.